Hello, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Focus Friday here on August the 25th. Wow, what a crazy night it was with storms and wind and rain on top of rain the night before. Saturated soils and high winds certainly always gives us that challenge for the potential for corn blown over and root lodge there. We'll certainly be evaluating some of that for this next week. As we look back to this last week, want to talk a little bit about western bean cutworm. We found a good chunk of that over in West Michigan. Also, the white mold pressure continues to brew out there, so talk about what we're going to do there. And finally, a quick update on tar spot. So let's jump right in. Western bean cutworm. We haven't seen too much of it the last couple of years, but one of those problems that is always so detrimental because you know you've got western bean cutworm when you see the holes in the sides of those ears. And of course, that's a lot different than our standard corn earworm, where we just have one large worm at the tip of that ear. And of course, the reason we have only one is because corn earworms are cannibalistic. So the biggest one wins, eats all the neighbors, and does that damage in the tip of the ear. But as I've said before, western bean cutworm are a little bit more like college students. So they have a party and they invite their friends. And so you oftentimes have multiple holes in different spots on the ears of those that are affected with western bean cutworm. And it's not only, of course, the reduction in yield from the kernels that are eaten, but sometimes just as bad, the quality damage that's done because every one of those holes and openings allows for a place for disease and fungus to enter that ear and get into the food chain. So continue to be concerned in western bean as far as their life cycle. They do overwinter here in Michigan, and so they have gone through that cycle. The adults flew around, laid their eggs a month or so ago, and then when those hatched, those small worms actually crawled up to the top of the plant in the tassel for a little time, did some feeding, and then made their way back down to feed on the ears where we're finding them today. And so, management-wise, they can be scouted for and sprayed, always a challenge, but probably our best solution is the use of the Viptera trait. Kind of excited about that trait because it's truly uniquely different than other traits in the industry. A vegetative insecticidal protein. That's where the VIP name comes from itself. And so highly effective in helping to manage the western bean cutworm. So something to think about for next year. And the other thing I want to talk about was white mold presence. Now, I know we talked a little bit about white mold last week, and you can refer back to there as far as the life cycle and all. But the question I've been getting this week on white mold is it going to spread and what can we do about it? So, if you're seeing these soybean fields, they're big and tall and beautiful and lush, and then you start seeing these single dead plants out throughout the canopy. It's always that first indication that we've got white mold, and you walk out there and look deep in the canopy, and you can see that white mold with those little black sclerotia sitting in the middle of that white mold. Of course, that is the apothecia that's going to be falling to the ground and growing those mushrooms for next year's potential challenge. But unfortunately, at this point in time, there's just no rescue treatment out there. And so as far as will it spread, though, it's funny enough, it doesn't really spread by contact out there from one plant to the other, but those infections occurred way back during the initiation of flowering. And so in some cases, those areas are definitely going to look like they're getting bigger because more and more plants are going to be more affected by that infection that happened in many cases weeks ago, but are just now starting to die and show that white mold itself on those lower plant stems. And so, we're going to have what we're going to have out there, and then we need to just do our best for planning for next year. If we're going back to beans on those fields, or at least when we go back to beans on those fields, making sure that we're widening rows, low in population, doing all the things we can to manage picking varieties that have some white mold tolerance to them and setting ourselves for the greatest chance of success in the future there. Finally, want to talk a little about tar spot here, and it's certainly been interesting how slow it has been developing out there in the countryside. It's being found, but I think that some of this high heat the last few weeks has been detrimental to allowing that tar spot to really take off like we saw 2 years ago. And as we know with all new diseases, we're going to continue to learn more and more about this devastating disease. What I do want to say, though, is for those folks that have sprayed, and uh, I think that's a great choice already. We knew years before we ever saw tar spot that spraying fungicide at tassel was a good return on investment. And so with or without tar spot, certainly a good thing for our corn crop out there. But at the same time, it is still too early to give up on the scouting of tar spot. We need to stay vigilant. We've got a long time between now and black layer on that corn. In fact, I haven't even seen any dented corn out there yet. So we got to go from dent to half milk line all the way down there to black layered corn. So let's keep our eye out there for it. It can always blow up again, and we want to be ready if it does. So with that, we've had again, interesting week this week. Great time for walking fields. And if you got any questions along the way, as always, give me a call. This is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist, with your Focus Friday.